Hey, hi everyone, welcome back to Windows Server 2012, configuring DNS. In the following sections, you'll begin to learn about the actual DNS server. You will start by installing DNS. Then I will talk about different zone configurations, options, and what they mean. Finally, you'll complete an exercise that covers configuring dynamic DNS, delegating zones, and manually entering records. DNS requires that you use a static IP address on the server. The reason for this is that clients access the DNS server by using its TCP IP address. And that's why DNS servers need to install a static IP address. If you're currently using DHCP on your server, change your DNS server to have a static IP address before completing this exercise. I know that most of you already know how to change your IP address, but for anyone new to Microsoft Server 2012 or to click on the Start button, go into Control Panel, make sure that the view by in the upper right corner is set to large icons, and then choose Network and Sharing Center. On the right side of the window, under Access Type, click the Access Type link. You have Ethernet, wireless, and so forth. Choose Properties and then click Internet Protocol version 4, TCP IP v4, and choose Properties. Choose the radio button for use the following IP address. Enter your local TCP IP settings. Click OK to change it from DHCP to a static IP address. Installing DNS. Let's start by installing DNS. Installing DNS is an important part of running a network. Exercise 2.1 walks you through the installation of a DNS server, installing and configuring the DNS servers. Open Server Manager. On the Server Manager dashboard, click the Add Roles and Features link. 3. Before you begin screen appears, click Next. 4. On the Selection Type page, choose Role-Based or Feature-Based Installation. Click Next. 5. Click Select a server from the Server Pool radio button and choose the server under the Server Pool section. Click Next. 6. Click the DNS server item in the server role list. If a pop-up window appears telling you that you need to add additional features, click the Add Features button. If you did not give your system a static TCP IP address, a window appears stating that you need a static TCP IP address. Just click the Continue button to bypass the error. Click Next to continue. 7. On the Add Features page, just click Next. 8. Click Next on the DNS Server Information screen. 9. On the Confirm Installation screen, choose the Restart the Destination Server automatically if required checkbox, and then click the Install button. 10. At the Installation Progress screen, click Close after the DNS server is installed. 11. Close Server Manager. Load balancing with round robin. Like other DNS implementations, the Windows Server 2012 R2 implementation of DNS supports load balancing through the use of round robin. Load balancing distributes the network load among multiple network hosts if they are available. You set up round robin load balancing by creating multiple resource records with the same host name but different IP addresses for multiple computers. Depending on the options you select, the DNS server responds with the IP address of one of the host computers. If round robin is enabled when a client requests name resolution, The first address entered in the database is returned to the resolver and is then sent to the end of the list. The next time a client attempts to resolve the name, the DNS server returns the second name in the database, which is now the first name, and then sends it to the end of the list, and so on. Round robin is enabled by default. Configuring a caching only server. Although all DNS name servers cache requires that they have resolved, caching only servers are DNS name servers that only perform queries, cache the answers, and return the results. They are not authoritative for any domains, and the information that they contain is limited to what has been cached while resolving queries. Accordingly, they don't have any zone files and they don't participate in zone transfers. When a caching-only server is first started, it has no information in its cache. The cache is gradually built over time. Caching-only servers are easy to configure. After installing the DNS service, simply make sure the root hints are configured properly. 1. Right-click your DNS server and choose the Properties command. 2. When the Properties dialog box appears, switch to the Root Hints Hub, see Figure 211. 3. If your server is connected to the internet, you should see a list of root hints for the root servers maintained by ICANN and the Internet Assigned Numbers Authority, IANA. If not, click the Add button to add root hints as defined in the cache.dns file. Setting zone properties. There are 6 tabs on the Properties dialog box for a forward or reverse lookup zone. You only use the Security tab to control what can change properties and to make dynamic updates to records on that zone. The other tabs are discussed in the following sections. A General tab. The General tab includes the following: the status indicator and the associated pause button will let you see and control whether this zone can be used to answer queries. When the zone is running, the server can use it to answer client queries. When it's paused, the server won't answer any queries it gets for that particular zone. The type of indicator and its change button allow you to select the zone type. The options are standard primary, standard secondary, and add AD integrated. As you change the type, the controls you see below the horizontal dividing line change to. For primary zones, you'll see a field that lets you select the zone file name. For secondary zone, you'll get controls that allow you to specify the IP addresses of the primary servers, but the most interesting controls are the ones you see for the AD integrated zones. When you change to the AD integrated zones, you have the ability to make the dynamic zones secure only. The replication indicator and its change button allow you to change the replication scope if the zone is stored in Active Directory. You can choose to replicate the zone data to any of the following: all DNS servers in the Active Directory forest, all DNS servers in a specified domain, all domain controllers in the Active Directory domain required if you use Windows 2000 domain controllers in your domain, all domain controllers specified in the replication scope of the application directory partition. The dynamic updates fields gives you a way to specify whether you want to support dynamic DNS updates from a compatible DHCP servers. As you learned earlier in the section, dynamic DNS and non-dynamic DNS, the DHCP server or DHCP client must know about and support dynamic DNS in order to use it, but the DNS server has to participate too. You can turn dynamic updates on or off, or you can require that updates be secured. Start of Authority SOA tab. The options on the Start of Authority SOA tab shown in figure 212 control the contents of the SOA record for this zone. Figure 212, the Start of Authority SOA tab of the Zone Properties dialog box. The serial number field indicates which version of the SOA record the server currently holds. Every time you change another field, you should increment the serial number so that other servers will notice a change and get a copy of the updated record. The primary server and responsible person fields indicate the location of the primary name server NS for this zone and the email address of the administrator responsible for the maintenance of the zone, respectively. The standard username for this is hostmaster. The refresh interval field controls how often any secondary zones of this zone must contact the primary zone server and get any changes that have been posted since the last update. The retry interval field controls how long secondary servers will wait after a zone transfer fails before they try again. They'll keep trying at the interval you specify, which should be shorter than the refresh interval, until they eventually succeed transferring zone data. The expires after field tells the secondary servers when to throw away zone data. The default of 1 day 24 hours means that a secondary server that hasn't gotten an update in 24 hours will delete its local copy of the zone data. The minimum digital TTL field sets the default TTL for all RRs created in the zone. You can assign specific TTLs to individual records if you want. The TTL for this record field controls the TTL for the SOA record itself. Name servers tab. The name server tab NS record for a zone indicates which name servers are authoritative for the zone. That normally means the zone primary server and any secondary servers you've configured for the zone. Remember, secondary servers are authoritative read-only copies of the zone. You edit the NS record for a zone using the name servers tab, see figure 213. The tab shows you which servers are currently listed, and you use the add, edit, and remove buttons to specify which name servers you want included in the zone's NS record. Wins tab. The Wins tab allows you to control whether this zone uses wins forward lookups. These lookups pass on queries that DNS can't resolve to wins for action. This is a useful setup if you're still using wins on your network. You must explicitly turn this option on with the Use Wins Forward Lookup checkbox on the Wins tab for a particular zone. Zone Transfers tab. Zone transfers are necessary and useful because they are the mechanism used to propagate zone data between primary and secondary servers. For primary servers, whether AD integrated or not, you can specify whether your servers will allow zone transfers and if so, to whom. You can use the following controls on the Zone Transfers tab to configure these settings per zone. The Allow Zone Transfers checkbox controls whether the server answers zone transfer requests for this zone at all. When it's not checked, no zone data is transferred. The allow zone transfers selections are as follows. To any server, allow any server anywhere on the internet to request a copy of your zone data. Only to servers listed on the Name Servers tab. Limits transfers to servers you specify. This is a more secure setting than to any server because it limits transfers to other servers for the same zone. Only to the following servers allow you to specify exactly which servers are allowed to request zone transfers. This list can be larger or smaller than the list specified on the Named Servers tab. The Notify button is for setting up automatic notification triggers that are sent to secondary servers for this zone. Those triggers signal the secondary servers that changes have occurred on the primary server so that the secondary servers can request updates sooner than their normally scheduled interval. The options in the Notify dialog box are similar to those in the Zone Transfers tab. You can enable automatic notification and then choose either servers listed on the Name Servers tab or the following servers. Configuring zones for dynamic updates. In exercise 2.2, you will create and then modify the properties for a forward lookup zone. In addition, you'll configure the zone to allow dynamic updates. You are installing this DNS zone as a primary zone without AD integration, even if you installed this DNS server onto a domain controller. Do not choose the checkbox for AD integration. 1. Open the DNS management snap-in by selecting Server Manager. Once in Server Manager, click DNS on the left side. In the Servers window center screen, right-click your server name and choose DNS Server. 2. Click the DNS server to expand it and click the Forward Lookup Zones folder. Right-click the Forward Lookup Zones folder and choose New Zone. 3. At the New Zone welcome screen, click Next. 4. At the zone type screen, choose the primary zone option. Again, if your DNS server is also a domain controller, do not check the box to store the zone in Active Directory. Click Next when you are ready. 5. Enter a new zone in the zone name of the field and click Next. 6. Leave the default zone file name and click Next. 7. Select the Do Not Allow Dynamic Updates radio button and click Next. 8. Click Finish to end the wizard. 9. Right-click the zone you just created and choose the Properties command. 10. Click the down arrow next to Dynamic Updates. Notice that there are only two options, non and non-secure and secure. The secure only option is not available because you are not using Active Directory integrated. Make sure non-secure and secure is chosen. 11. Click on OK to close the properties box. 12. Close the DNS management snap-in. 13. Close the server manager snap-in. Delegating zones for DNS. DNS provides the ability to divide the namespace into one or more zones, which can then be stored, distributed, and replicated to other DNS servers. When deciding whether to divide your DNS namespace to make additional zones, consider the following reasons to use additional zones: a need to delegate management of part of your DNS namespace to another location or department within your organization, a need to divide one large zone into smaller zones for distributed traffic loads among multiple servers, for improving DNS name resolution, performance, or for creating a more fault-tolerant DNS environment. A need to extend the namespace by adding numerous subdomains at once, such as to accommodate the opening of a new branch or site. Each newly delegated zone requires a primary DNS server, just as a regular DNS zone does. When delegating zones within your namespace, be aware that for each new zone you create, you need to place delegation records in other zones that point to the authoritative DNS servers for the new zone. This is necessary both to transfer authoritative and to provide correct referral to other DNS servers and clients of the new servers being made authoritative for the new zone. In exercise 2.3, you'll create a dedicated subdomain of the domain you created back in exercise 2.2. Note that the name of the server to which you want to delegate the subdomain must be stored in an A or C name record in the parent domain. Creating a delegated DNS zone. 1. Open the DNS management snap-in by selecting Server Manager. Once in Server Manager, click DNS on the left-hand side in the server's window center screen. Right-click your server name, choose DNS Manager. 2. Expand the DNS server and locate the zone you created in exercise 2.2. 3. Right-click the zone and choose the new delegation command. 4. The new delegation wizard appears. Click next to dismiss the initial wizards page. 5. Enter NS1 or whatever other name you like in the delegated domain field of the delegated domain name page. This is the name of the domain for which you want to delegate authority to another DNS server. It should be a subdomain of the primary domain. For example, to delegate authority from farmington.example.net, you'd enter Farmington in the delegated domain field. Click next to complete this setup. 6. When the name servers page appears, click the add button to add the names and IP addresses of the servers that will be hosting the newly delegated zone. For the purpose of this exercise, enter the server name you used in exercise 2.2. Click the resolve button to resolve this domain name's IP address automatically into the IP address field. Click OK when you are finished. Click next to continue with the wizard. 7. Click the finish button. The new delegation wizard disappears and you'll see the new zone you just created appear beneath the zone you selected in step 3. The newly delegated zones folder icon is drawn in gray to indicate that control of the zone is delegated. DNS forwarding. If a DNS server does not have an answer to a DNS request, it may be necessary to send the request to another DNS server. This is called DNS forwarding. You need to understand the two main types of forwarding. External forwarding. When a DNS server forwards an external DNS request to a DNS server outside of your organization, this is considered external forwarding. For example, a resolver requests the www.microsoft.com. Most likely your internal DNS server is not going to have Microsoft's web page in its DNS database. So your DNS server is going to send the request to an external DNS, most likely your ISP. Conditional forwarding. Conditional forwarding is a lot like external forwarding, except that you are going to forward requests to specific DNS servers based on conditions. Usually this is an excellent setup for internal DNS resolution. For example, let's say you have two companies, stellacom.com and stellatest.com. If a request comes in from stellacom.com, it gets forwarded to the Stellacom DNS server, and any requests for stellatest.com will get forwarded to the Stellatest DNS server. Requests are forwarded to a specific DNS server depending on the condition that an administrator sets up. Manually creating DNS records. From time to time, you may find it necessary to add resource records manually to your Windows Server 2012 or to DNS servers. Although dynamic DNS frees you from the need to fiddle with A and PTR records for clients and other such entities, you still need to create other resource types, including MX records, required for the proper flow of SMTP email manually. You can manually create a PTR, MX, SRV, and many other record types. There are only two important things to remember for manually creating DNS records. You must right-click the zone and choose either the new record command or the other new records command. You must know how to fill in the fields of whatever record type you're using. For example, to create an MX record, you need three pieces of information: the domain, the mail server, and the priority. To create an SRV record, however, you need several more pieces of information. Manually creating DNS RRs. 1. Open the DNS management snap-in by selecting Server Manager. Once in Server Manager, click DNS on the left side. In the server's window center screen, right-click your server name and choose DNS Manager. 2. Expand your DNS server, right-click its zone and choose New Host A record. 3. Enter mail test in the name field. Enter a TCP IP number in the IP address field. You can use any number for this exercise, for example, 192.168.1.254. Click the Add Host button. 4. A dialog box appears stating that the host record was created successfully. Click OK, click Done. 5. Right-click your zone name and choose New Mail Exchanger MX6. Enter mail test in the host or child domain field and enter mail test.yourdomain.com or whatever domain name you used in exercise 2.2 in the fully qualified domain name FQDN of the mail server field. Then click OK. Notice that the new record is already visible. 7. Next, create an alias or CNAME record to point to the mail server. It is assumed that you already have an A record for mail test in your zone. Right-click your zone and choose New Alias CNAME. 8. Type mail into the alias name field. 9. Type mail test.yourdomain.com into the fully qualified domain name FQDN for target host field. 10. Click the OK button. 11. Choose the DNS management snap-in. So I'm going to leave it here today for this video. If you like listening, please consider like, sharing, and subscribing. Thank you.